All right, in this next round, we'll be focusing on two significant EDRM steps. We'll be talking about the preservation and collection of data, as well as processing, analysis, and review. And although we're discussing two steps in the EDRM workflow, the idea remains the same. What do we do with data that's not located in Office 365? I'm thinking about collections. How am I defensively collecting data that may not be found in Office 365? That could be file shares, that could be custodians' PCs, and that could be data that comes from an outside counsel. And how am I processing that data in? Am I able to process data in that's not located in Office 365? And most importantly here, I'm thinking about load files. When I'm receiving data from opposing parties, am I able to ingest that data into my eDiscovery tool for litigators to get in and see the data that's been received? So we'll focus on the third-party content sources, and we'll also look at defensibility, the amount of content we can collect, and then are we actually doing any type of reporting from the data that's being processed in? So now let's walk through how to collect non-Office 365 content into the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution. We'll come over to the Searches tool. Searches is where the Advanced eDiscovery solution does their collections of data. And what we'll find is that when we start to create the new search, the only data that we're actually able to collect is going to be data that is residing inside of Office 365. So you have the options for Office Exchange, Skype for Business, Teams. However, what about file shares that might reside in the corporate infrastructure? How about PCs for different users? How about files that have been received from an opposing party that need to be collected? Those options aren't available to us inside of the Advanced eDiscovery solution. So the first thing we're coming to the conclusion on is that the collections portion of the Advanced eDiscovery solution for Microsoft is just for Office 365. Now, what if we've received a load file? Load files, as we've talked about, are industry standards on how opposing parties are exchanging data. And we want to ingest a load file into the Advanced eDiscovery solution. So we'll come over to review sets. This is how they process and ingest data into the case. You can see we have our EDP Office 365 review set. And when I come into manage my review set, I do have the option to add non-Office 365 data. So we'll go ahead to uploads and upload our file. This is where the process gets very confusing. It talks about how to upload non-Office 365 data, but it also mentions that any data that's being uploaded has to be in a format that's the alias at domain name. So in our case, chris.germany at enron.group would be the alias name. Okay, I understand that. You want the folder structure to remain named by the custodian data. But I'm receiving data for an opposing party. My custodians aren't already loaded in this case. This is data coming from the outside. There's no custodian field that's already been populated into my case, presenting a huge problem for us. We cannot process load files into the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution. And in addition to that, the only data that we can upload into the Advanced eDiscovery solution is going to be data that belongs to the custodian. So if I had file shares from chris.germany, or if I had PC collections from chris.germany, I'd have to do it in a format like this, where the folder structure would match the custodian name. And then when we click on the next upload files, it then tells us we need to download a copy of AZcopy to use and run a command prompt to pull this data into the solution. And you can see here's the command prompt. This is now getting very complicated. This is becoming something that a non-technical audience would throw their hands up and walk away from. So I'm very concerned that the Advanced eDiscovery solution, the way it's being portrayed by Microsoft, is that it is an eDiscovery solution for their customers. I believe it's only an eDiscovery solution for their Office 365. Let's take a look now on how we would collect data from third-party sources using the Veritas eDiscovery platform. You can see here I've come into my collections module, and already inside of my collection tasks, we've populated with data from the Exchange environment, so on-premise and Office 365 data. We have file shares that are located across the corporate infrastructure, so something that's non-Office 365 related. SharePoint, which may be in Office 365, may not. Desktops, data from custodians residing on their PCs. And then we're also able to collect from our own archiving solution, Enterprise Vault. We're happy to say that we're the only eDiscovery solution that's able to both search, hold, and collect data from Enterprise Vault archives. We have other additional sources that we're able to collect data from. Those sources, of course, include the ones we've talked about: file shares, PC, Exchange, and SharePoint. We also have LiveLink, FileNet, Documentum, Domino, ev.cloud, which is our archiving solution in the cloud. We also work with a company called Globinet that has a tool called Merge1 that allows us to collect over 80 different content sources. That content can be collected from Teams, Skype, Zoom, WebEx, or any other messaging-related tool that might be found inside the corporate infrastructure. We can use the Merge1 solution to archive that data directly into Enterprise Vault or enterprisevault.cloud. Additionally, if it's being done in more of a reactive collection manner, we're able to take that data from Merge1 and process it in directly into the Veritas eDiscovery platform. Now, the other thing that we wanted to take a look at was how do we ingest non-Office 365 data directly into our solution. With the Veritas eDiscovery platform, it's available inside of sources and pre-processing. Here's the different sources of data that I can directly process into my tool. I can do collection sets, which is all that data from the previous collections module that you just looked at. I could take all of the data that I collected and process it directly into my tool, allowing for legal teams and reviewers to search and analyze my data. I could also bring in data via the load file source. So we've talked about how in industry standard, opposing parties will still exchange data via the load file, concordance load file format, including a DAT file, a COPT file, and natives, images, and text files. The Veritas eDiscovery platform also allows you to ingest those load files in. And then the final one we'll take a look at, which is the add case folder source, is where we take data and place it inside of the Clearwell preservation storage device and ingest that data directly in. We were trying to go through a sample inside of the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution and bring in data, and we found that it was becoming quite cumbersome, forcing us to run command prompts. With the Veritas eDiscovery platform, we're able to simply populate a UNC path to any location that's available to you. And then when we browse to that data, we're able to directly ingest that data, clicking the folder here. And now that data would directly be brought into our case. Doesn't require the data to be associated to a particular custodian. Doesn't require that data have to be uploaded via AZ copy using a command prompt. We've kept the ease of use here. We know that there might be a non-technical audience that wants to function to load in load files and native data. And so in addition to being able to take the data that's been collected and bring it into processing, we're also able to bring non-collection data and directly process it into the eDiscovery solution. And that's an industry standard that we would want to see with processing as a function of the EDR and workflow. We should be able to take third-party content sources and directly ingest them into our case to allow reviewers to research and analyze the data. From looking at the comparative models here, we find that the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution is lacking where it's only able to collect and process in Office 365 data, whereas the Veritas eDiscovery platform continues to both collect and process third-party data sources.
EDP wins round 3. Collections are not Office 365 centric and also not tied to custodians, which is important for bringing in content from outside counsel. It's much easier to process external data. There's enhanced defensibility and error reporting, and also we have the ability to bring in load files